distinguished heads of research centers under the Research Organization for Agriculture and Food BRIN, Dr. Irman Ali, Discipline Leader of Management and Innovation, School of Business and Law, Central Queensland University, Dr. Dorothy Chandraleka from the International Tropical Fruit Network, TFNet, Professor Christian Mendes Lazarte from Universitat of Lima, Peru, Lim Hao Chen and colleagues from Academy of Sciences, China, distinguished speakers, moderator, and all participants. Welcome to ROAFERIAN number 15 international webinar entitled Strengthening Sustainable Agriculture and Food Competitiveness Through Post-Harvest and Supply Chain Research. This webinar is organized by the Research Organization for Agriculture and Food BRIN Indonesia in collaboration with the Center for Regional Economies and Supply Chain, Central Queensland University, Australia. On behalf of the organizing committee, we warmly welcome all participants joining us today, and we sincerely hope today's webinar will strengthen international collaboration and knowledge exchange in sustainable agriculture and food system. Ladies and gentlemen, to officially open today's webinar, may we kindly invite Dr. Puji Lestari, SPM, SE, PhD, Chair of the Research Organization for Agriculture and Food BRIN, to deliver the opening remarks. To Dr. Puji Lestari, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone from Indonesia. Good afternoon to our colleagues from Australia and perhaps from other places. Honorable Director of Center for Regional Economies and Supply Chain, Central Queensland University, Australia, Professor Dilon Akbar. Honorable Director International Research and Cluster Lead, Central Queensland University, Professor Fariad Babakan. Honorable Associate Professor, School of Business and Management, Institute Teknologi Bandung, Dr. Yuanita Handayati. Honorable the Head of the Center for Horticulture at the Association for Agriculture and Food, Dr. Ditayangkan Utami. Distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you to ROAFERIAN Series 15 International Webinar, jointly organized by the Research Organization for Agriculture and Food, ROAF, BRIN, Indonesia, and the Center for Regional Economies and Supply Chain, Central Queensland University, Australia. Today's webinar carries the theme Strengthening Sustainable Agriculture and Food Competitiveness Through Supply Chain Research. This theme is very relevant to the challenges faced by agriculture and food system today. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know that agriculture is no longer only about increasing production. Yes, production is very important, but it's not enough. Agriculture must also be handled properly, maintained in good quality, distributed efficiently, and delivered to market at the right time. In many cases, the real challenges begin after harvest. Post-harvest losses, quality deterioration, supply chain disruption, market uncertainty, and sustainability pressure are becoming more complex. These challenges affect farmers, business actors, consumers, and regional economies. They also influence food security, food affordability, and competitiveness of agricultural products. As horticultural products, these challenges are even more critical. fruits and vegetables are living products. They continue to change after harvest. They respire, lose water, ripen, soften, and may deteriorate quickly. Without proper handling, packaging, cooling, logistic, and vaccination, product quality can decline before reaching consumers. It is why primary post-harvest science and supply chain research must work together. And in Indonesia, as we know that we have agricultural diversity and very rich with a wide range of horticultural commodities. Products often need to move across regions, islands, and different transportation modes, which creates both opportunities and challenges for quality preservation and market access. Therefore, we need better post-harvest handling system for gene technologies, quality standard, traceability, safety assurance, and digital technology that can help make supply chain more visible, responsive, and data-driven. In this regard, strong collaboration is also very essential among farmers, collectors, logistic providers, industries, retailers, researchers, learning from BRIN, also from Australia, from CRESG, universities, and policymakers. This is the reason why collaboration between ROAFERIAN and Central University is very meaningful. CRESG brings strong expertise in regional economics, supply and value chains, logistics, policy, human capital, and regional development. These areas are very relevant to strengthening agriculture and food system in Indonesia. We are also pleased to have the participation of the School of Business and Management Institute Technology Bandung, SPM. I think it adds an important perspective in business models, innovation, operation, sustainability, and circular economy. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are honored to have distinguished speakers who will share valuable insight, especially Professor Delor Akbar, Dr. Ditayangkan Utami, Professor Koryat Babakan, and Dr. Yuanita Handayati. I hope this webinar will become a meaningful forum for knowledge exchange. I also hope it can open new opportunities for joint research. On behalf of the Research Organization of the Childhood BRIN, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to Central Queensland University, especially CRESG, for this collaboration. We also thank all speakers, moderator, Dr. Sari Kailaku, hosts, organizing committee members, and participants for your support and active participation. May today's webinar brings you insight and strengthen our collaboration toward more sustainable, resilient, and competitive agriculture and food supply chains. With that, let's say Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I officially open ROAFERIAN 15 International Webinar. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Puji, for the inspiring remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, the next session is the presentation and discussion session, which will be moderated by Dr. Sari Intan Kailaku, STPMSI. Before we begin the session, allow me to briefly present her biography. Dr. Sari Intan Kailaku specialized in post-harvest and agro-industrial technology, food loss reduction, logistic 4.0 in food supply chains, as well as the application of IoT and machine learning for food supply chain systems. She earned her bachelor's degree in agro-industrial technology, master's degree in community nutrition, and PhD in agro-industrial engineering from IPB University. Throughout her professional career, she has served as senior researcher at the Research Center for Horticulture BRIN, Senior Researcher at the Research Center for Agro-Industry BRIN and researcher at several scientific and professional research networks. She has also actively contributed to international collaborations and research initiatives, including as a visiting scientist at the Asia Post-Harvest Research Center in the Republic of Korea, and invited expert in APEC seminars on digitalization and innovation in food supply chains. So without any further ado, to Dr. Sari Intan Kailaku, time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone from Indonesia, and a good afternoon to our colleagues joining us from Australia and other countries. And thank you very much to the Master of Ceremony, Bu Andalusi Arini, for the kind introduction. I would like to say hello to our guest today, Dr. Imran Ali, Discipline Leader of Management and Innovation, School of Business and Law, Central Queensland University, Dr. Dorothy Chandraleka from the International Tropical Fruit Network, TFNet, Dr. Chen Weina and colleagues from the Academy of Nafra, China, Professor Cristian Mendes Lazarte from Universitat of Lima, Peru, and Lin Hao Chen and colleagues from Academy of Sciences, China. Thank you for joining us today. The Honorable Dr. Puji Lestari, Chairwoman of the Research Organization for Agriculture and Food, BRIN, and the Honorable Speakers, Professor Delwar Akbar, the Director of CRESC, Central Queensland University, Dr. Dwinita Wikan Utami, the Head of Research Center for Agriculture, Horticulture, BRIN, Professor Hurriyat Babakan, Director of International Research and Cluster Lead, CRESC, Central Queensland University, and also Dr. Iwanita Handayati from School of Business and Management, Institut Teknologi Bandung. It is my pleasure to moderate today's scientific session in ROAFERIAN number 15 international webinar with the theme of strengthening sustainable agriculture and food competitiveness through supply chain research. Today, we will hear 4 important perspectives from primary post-harvest technology, agri-food supply chain integration, policy, operations, collaborations, and circular economy. Before we begin, allow me to briefly explain the session flow. We will have 2 presentations in the first session, followed by a 15-minute discussion. And then after that, we will continue with 2 more presentations, followed by the second discussion session for 15 minutes. And each speaker will have 20 minutes for the presentation. Dear participants, please feel free to write your questions in the Zoom chat box and kindly mention the name of the speaker to whom your question is addressed. Okay, now let us begin with our first speaker. It is my pleasure to invite Professor Delwar Akbar, the Director of the Center for Regional Economics and Supply Chains, Central Queensland University. Okay, let me share create the short biography of Professor Delwar. Thank you. His core expertise is regional economics and value chains, also supply chains, logistics, workforce development and rural economic systems, and economic modeling for regional development challenges. He is the director and professor at the CRESC in CQ since 2020, and also he is now the board of governance member, Rural Economy Center of Excellence. The president, he played a role as president of INZ RSAI, and also right now the vice president of Pacific Regional Science Conference Organization. His research impact includes contributing in more than 90 research and consultancy projects, and he already secured a lot of research funding, published more than 200 peer-reviewed journal articles, book chapters, and technical reports, and also supervised many Master of Research and PhD candidates to completion. And currently he has 10 PhD students under his supervision. Okay, Professor Delwar, are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, you will have 20 minutes, Professor Delwar, and Professor Delwar will share his presentation entitled Horizontal Collaboration for Better Integration of Agri-Food Supply, Case of the Pineapple Industry in Australia. This topic is highly relevant to today's theme because collaboration across actors is essential for building a more integrated, efficient, and resilient agri-food supply chain. Prof. Delwar, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. And the screen and the time are yours.
So I will share or you'll share?
Do you want us to share? It's okay. We can help sharing your screen. Do you need us to share your presentation?
You can share, yeah,
Okay.
if it is convenient. I send you the presentation
Yes.
already in the morning. Yeah.
Can you see it now, Professor Delwar?
Yes, I can see it. So you can put in a what mode called presentation. Oh, excellent. All right. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good afternoon, everyone. And thank you for your patience coming to this webinar. And thanks, Sari and the whole teams to organizing this. That's a wonderful collaborations between BRIN and QS. And many thanks to everyone. So I think the theme already chosen, and it's a very timely themes, because we can see lots of post-harvest loss, and also there is a lots of disruption in the supply chain, and that's actually increasing so much money at the consumer ends. So next slide, please. So before I go to my real presentations, I just have a couple of few minutes on this research. So our center name is Center for Regional Economies and Supply Chain, and we have 3 clusters: and rural and regional economies, supply, value chains, and blockchain, and also workforce, regional workforce futures. So these are our 3 main clusters. We have 3 professors leading these 3 clusters. And also we have the focus area is agriculture, water, energy, mining, climate, environment. We did a little bit of work on health and housing as well. And our research is impacting across 5 SDG 1, 2, 8, 10, and 12. So that's our overall structure of our centers and the impacts. Next slide, please. That's about my highlight. This is already Sari took. So next slide, please. So today, actually, I'll talk about the collaborations, and mostly the horizontal collaboration. What does it mean, and why it is very important, particularly for the small landholders. Particularly, it is very important for Indonesian context or any other developing context, and how the horizontal collaborations can be integrated to the market systems. So we tested this through a pineapple industry in Australia. We have not tested anywhere else in the world, but we hope to test in futures in the developing nations as well. Next slide, please. So purpose today is we will actually try to explore what is the inter and also cross-regional collaboration between the farmers. So inter means within a local area. And this is horizontal collaborations within the farmers, and to ensure the targeted, adequate, and continuous ecosystem supply chain. So that is the vertical integrations. So I'll show you in the next slides what is vertical integration is. And we have many regions of doing this, but one of the region is consistent or increased farm gate value, because this is a very huge problem in many countries. Farmers get only $1, while the product we can purchase from the retail shops about $5, $6. So why? So if we do the horizontal collaborations and control the market, in such case, actually, the farmers can bargain, have a better bargaining power. And also we have the access to the both domestic and overseas markets. So this is the two regions that we really need the horizontal collaboration. Next slide, please. So in doing this, actually, because we did this in the Australian context and also mostly in the context of horticulture, actually. So we did Central Queensland regions and also the North Queensland regions. So Bandabag, Imrali, Pond, Rockhampton, Bowen, Cumberland, Mariba. So that's a big, huge region, actually, from Central Queensland, North Queensland, and Far North Queensland, equivalent to more than probably more than Malaysia. The country size about Malaysia. So that's very big regions. And key stakeholders, we actually, in the methods, we do the expert presentation and discussion, individual tasks discussions, and then we actually give them the stakeholders group tasks. So they actually propose and make the model. And the third methods, we develop the model and then apply the model in our pineapple industry. Next slide, please. So before we go to the very details about what we found from the study, there is a little bit of, I think almost everyone might have some idea what is supply chain and what is value chain. So supply chain actually started from the production systems, even before the production systems. It's called the input providers. And it has about the 9 to 10 stages. So at the end, it goes to the consumption. And every stage, we can go to the next slide and see the price is changing. So that's the value change. So you can see that. So if we see the farm gate value, probably price per tray, for example, in case this is like a mango, it's $10 per tray in Australia, like one tray about 12 or 13 mangoes. So when it goes to the distribution center, its mango price goes to $19. And when it is go to the retail, it goes to $20. So how the changing the hand and it actually adding the price. So that's about the value chain. And we can see the farm gate to the distribution center. That's a simple task, but the price goes up by 95%. From distribution to retail, they only have a margin for 5% price. Then it goes to the domestic consumers. So ideally, the farm gate to the retail price, if it is just double, twice, so it's an ideal condition, twice or until 3.5 times. But if it goes beyond these points, then we need to find out there is a problem. There is some issues into the supply chain. Next slide, please. Now we also use another term we call collaborations. So in this ladder, you can see we started with the competition. We are used to it competitions by born. And then we try to the cooperations, and then we try do some coordination, and then collaborations, and then consultations. What collaborations mean or teaching us is actually, it's not a simple relationships. It's actually very thick relationships. There is a if there is a collaboration, we need to think about the profit and loss together. It's not that we are sharing the profit, also we need to sharing the loss also. And if we do the collaborations, there is we can create something new together. So that's the power of the collaborations. But the cooperation and coordinations looks like collaboration, but it does not have this power of creating something new. That's why I'm telling everywhere that we need to collaborate to each other. Means we need to create something and also own something each other. So in here, horizontal collaboration means the farmers, they need to collaborate each other and they actually create something to maximize their bargain power on the market. Next slide, please. Now, horizontal collaborations, you can see in this figure what it is and why actually we need these collaborations. So collaboration always starting from opportunistic view. For example, if I said, look, probably this issue is a very burning issue for Indonesia and Australia, let's work on this. So I'm sure some of you and some of our researchers will come together because there is an opportunity. There is nothing wrong with coming together because of the opportunity arises. But from these opportunities, we need to go to the level of which called collaborations. We need to go through the strategic, how actually this opportunity we can capitalize and we can grow together and also we can build together. Okay, so that's called collaboration. So opportunistic, so this is the ladder. So we're starting from the opportunistics, but this is human nature, but we have to be strategic at the end. Also on the vertical integrations, there is someone to initiate, someone to tell, oh, there is something opportunities there. And someone can facilitate and someone at the end can lead. So this relationship from the initiators to the leader is also very important. That's actually that's affecting the quality of the collaborations. Next slide, please. Well, this is the model. I'm not going very quickly. This is the model that actually we did this exercise to develop our models. So we asked several questions to all those stakeholders involved in this model. And there's a paper available on this. So I'll send you the paper. You can have a look. But it's things that those are the questions need to be answered before we starting some sort of horizontal collaborations. What else should be considered? What are the risks? What is the governance? What are the activities, relationships? Which are the actors, mechanism, incentives, right structure? So all those things we really need to understand before we starting any horizontal collaborations. So horizontal collaboration is not cooperatives. Remember that. That's a commercially ingrained collaborations. Next, please. So we started with some of the brainstorming with the mango. And then actually we revised our the model. So as we can see, there's lots of linkages about the collaboration, how they are linking. So that means everything they are collaborating. Okay. YOLO means most of them collaborating, or most of the things they collaborate, but not everything they collaborate. So we actually show here some of the things are very much vertical, but some of are actually horizontally aligned. Next slide, please, Sally. So this is the model actually developed at the end after doing lots of exercises. So we started from the entities, there's a commercial entities, and the suppliers at the end. And we actually initial development activities done by the leaderships, what are the issues, informations, and formation of the supply chain for these collaborations. And then on the right-hand side, we have lots of operational activities, jointly identification of the issues, building and maintaining the trust. Trust is very important. And distribution of powers, sharing risks and rewards. Trust, why trust we found very important is because if the farmers, they do not trust each other, they're always competitive, then they can't make the collaborations. So you can see the farmers pack house and farmers industry, they actually horizontally collaborated. They do the horizontal collaborations. But the consumers, retail, wholesale, processors, the farms and suppliers, the supplier means here input suppliers. They're actually vertical collaborations. Next. So based on the model that we actually developed, we actually applied this model to our pineapple industries, and we published this paper it's called Journal of Cooperative Organization Management. So in collaborations, we actually try whether any of the business model, the presentation that we did earlier, the horizontal vertical coordination can work to survive, to making a business model more successful. So that's one. And here actually we interviewed 12, and you can see different roles, different executive director to executive members, growers, wholesalers, government people, transport, local council, wholesalers, and also the distributors. All of them we explained. And then what we found, I'll show you in the next slide. Sorry, next slide, please. So Tropical Pines is a name of a company, Tropical Pines. So on the top of the Tropical Pine, there is a called commercial entity. So they have the producers. They don't control the producers. Producers actually come to them to give all of their products, because Tropical Pines ensure that if the wholesale price is $2, producer will get $1. So sometimes producer get a little bit more than $1 from other entities, but because they are consistently promising what they are doing, and they keep their word. So that's the producers always are with them. And this model, the business operation models, actually, they actually covered about 45% of the market share of the fresh pineapple. So you can see how successful they are because of in Australia, all of Australia. And all other entities, this Tropical Pine, this commercial entity, except the producers, all other entities, they actually manage. And the producer do not need to worry about transporters, packers, wholesalers, retailers, policymakers, government officials. Even the business entity, the commercial entity, they actually do the agronomy services to the producers, the farmers as well. So you can see they are very, very well organized, big company, but they do not own any land. They do not own any farmers, and farmers have the independence, whether they'll give the product to them or not to. They're surviving since 1970. Next slide, please. So what is their governance structure? Is there is still a cooperative enterprise, looks like, but it's a hybrid cooperative enterprise, but they use the corporate governance. It's not anything with benevolence. They use the corporate governance. And on the member participation, growers and shareholders, but they also have an operational management steering committee that's called Tropical Pines. So these two entities, one is the two entity linked through the corporate governance, and the member participation, what they do, they're growing the fruits, They make the decision of the production, sharing information, value creation, and coordinating of the supply. This is their part. But on the right-hand side, the management, they do all the supports, packing, marketing, agronomy, coordination, management, value creation, everything they do this. And that's how they are actually very successful. Next one. And then we actually did a bit of another level of analysis, what factors actually affecting the level of collaborations between the there's 3 groups here you can see. One is producer group, one is corporate body, who is the commercial entity, and the other group is all other stakeholders. So we found that the information, the incentive alignments is very important out of all the factors. Like they got out of $2 wholesale price, the farm they got $1. That's a big incentives for them. And also the incentives that they got all the scientific supports, agronomy supports from the commercial entity. That's another incentives. And the information sharing. This commercial entity is they actually share every single information, every single law, day-to-day market situation they share with their farmers. And these farmers are their shareholders as well. And also their decision synchronizations. So they don't do the decisions by themselves. So they actually quarterly or annually, they meet with their whole stakeholders together and make the decisions very collectively. That's the factors that are affecting the collaboration. Next. So what we found, the important issue here is in terms of the growing sites and also collaboration sites, cost, quality, water supply, these are the very important for the growing sites. And logistic, transport, technology, innovation, market access, brand and traceability. So they actually branded their product. It's called Tropical Pines. So that's very important. And the policy implications is always the horizontal collaboration, very important role in the vertical collaborations or vertical integration of the supply chain. Okay. So that's why we actually asked the government should facilitate such models, industry bodies, and the industry bodies can facilitate such model to the governments. So this is the policy, most of these two policy implications. I think that's from me. I don't have any more slides probably. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Delwar, for the insightful presentation and perfect timing also. I noted that horizontal collaboration is not only about efficiency, but also about building trust and coordination and more importantly, shared benefits among supply chain actors. This is a very important lesson for strengthening the agri-food supply chains, both in Australia and in Indonesia. Please stay with us, Professor. We will have the discussion session after the second presentation by Dr. Dwinita. Okay, thank you, Professor. Now we move to our second speaker, Dr. Dwinita. Are you with us? Okay, thank you. It is my pleasure to invite Dr. Dwinita Wikan Utami. She is the Head of Research Center for Horticulture in BRIN. Her core expertise is in plant molecular biology, genetic and molecular mechanism in plants, and also marker-assisted breeding, genomics, and genetic engineering for superior varieties. And she is now the head of Research Center for Horticulture, and before she was the head for Research Center for Horticulture and Estate Crops in BRIN. But she started her career in the Ministry of Agriculture. And she graduates from IPB University for her master's degrees and PhD, and has several important international collaborations and many recent publication on rice, toxicity tolerance, and so on. Okay, Dr. Dwita, will you be sharing your own screen or do you need help?
Maybe from yours, I think.
Okay.
Please.
Yes. The committee, please assistance for the okay. Dr. Dwinita will deliver a presentation entitled Post-Harvest and Supply Chain Technology for quality preservation and market access of fresh horticultural products. And this is very interesting topics also for our webinar today. Fresh horticultural products are highly perishable, as we all know. And Dr. Dwinita, you will have 20 minutes for your presentation. The screen and the time are yours.
Okay. Thank you, Mbak Sari. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for all the organizer of ROAFERIAN 15, and also good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. So welcome to my presentation. So here the title is about the primary post-harvest. So I just add more the title, Mbak Sari. So please. Primary post-harvest and supply chain technology for quality preservation and market access for fresh horticulture product. So today we will explore how technology can transform the way we manage fresh produce to ensure it reaches the market in a peak condition. Okay, maybe the next. Okay, so the content of our discussion is divided into 5 key areas. So first, we will look into the complexity of Indonesia's fresh horticulture system. And the second, the critical challenges of post-harvest loss that we face. And the third, the post-harvest technologies required for quality preservation and also market access. And fourth, our recent digital and supply chain innovations. And finally, the key takeaway to wrap our discussion. Okay, the next. Okay, yeah, maybe the next. Is it the first? About the first. Okay, so this is about the Indonesia inside the complex fresh horticulture systems. So to understand our challenges, we must look at the scale of Indonesia by 2025. Our populations will exceed 286 million people across more than 17,500 islands. So this makes the Indonesia the largest archipelago economy in the world, so characterized by extreme sociocultural diversity and one of the richest, most biodiversity ecosystem on Earth. Okay, the next. Yes. So the managing of food system across sites of vast geographical spread is incredibly complex. The map illustrates the long multimodal roads required to move produce from cool uplands to warm lowland urban centers. So this distance combined with ecological richness makes our system highly prone to food loss and waste. Okay, next. So this is the complexity of fresh horticulture products. So the fundamental challenge is the biological character. So fresh horticulture products are still living tissue after harvest. So because they continue to breathe and lose water, quality control cannot be a single event. It must be a continuous process for the moment of harvest through the transport and monitoring. The main post-harvest challenges, so this is the tropical complexity. And a tropical climate like ours, biological reactions are accelerated. High ambient temperatures speed up the respiration and senescence, while the humidity encourages the fungal growth. Beyond biology, we face the geographical hurdles where rough transport often leads to mechanical damage and pressing. Okay, the next. Yeah, so this is about the post-harvest loss and supply chains. We will now take a closer look at the multidimensional nature of these losses and how the impact of our national systems. So post-harvest loss and multidimensional food system challenges. So we can show this slide. The numbers are staggering. So Indonesia loses 22 to 48 million tons for food annually, which is an economic burden up to 30 billion USD or 5% of our GDP. So environmentally, this contributes to over 7% of our greenhouse gas emissions. So most importantly, reducing this waste could potentially feed nearly half our populations. Okay, the next. Yeah, so here the distribution problem. So think of the supply chain as a pipeline from the harvest to market. The distribution phase is often the longest period where products go unmonitored. It is here that environmental change and repetitive handling cause the most leaks in both quality and quantity before the product ever reaches the market. Okay, the next slide, please. Here about the distribution-related quality deterioration. So deterioration is cumulative. Issues starting with the field health at harvest are compounded by mixed quality during collection, pure packaging at the packing house, and temperature and also relative humidity fluctuations during storage and also transport. So when these risks are anticipated, the product often face the rejection of the markets. Okay, the next. So let's see the critical control point, or we call it the CC, quality management. So to manage this, we must identify the critical points that each stage require a specific intervention. So let's say, for example, rapid handling at harvest to reduce field health, standardize the grading during sorting, and real-time monitoring during the transport to prevent delays and temperature shock. Okay, the next, I think, yeah. Here about the quality preservation technology for market access. So in this section, we will discuss the specific technologies that allow us to maintain the consistent quality and meet stringent buyer standards. So let's say the harvest, maturity, and shelf life. Strategies depend on the physiology. The climacteric produce, which continue to ripen after harvest, require carefully ethylene and temperature management, while for the non-climacteric produce must be harvested at the peak maturity, with handling focused entirely on preserving that existing quality through the cooling. Okay, the next. Let's say about the sorting and grading for market access. So naturally, no fruit or vegetable has the same characteristics, even the planted and harvested in the same time and condition. So that's why the need to grading. So grading is the bridge to market access by separating produce into grade A for premium export or grade B for domestic retail and lower grades for processing. We can maximize the value that harvest to reduce the waste. So the fresh produce is naturally variably, making subjective visually grading difficult. So we are now using the machine learning such as K-means clustering to provide the objective data-driven grading that ensure the consistency and better market allocation. So inspection by K-means, we can clustering the fruits and vegetables, enabling consistent data-driven market allocation. So that the diagram in the right side, the diagram that provide quantitative threshold for each grading, transforming a traditionally subjective sorting process into an objective, repeatable, and also scalable system. Okay, the next, let's say how, this is about the visually of the diagram. We can manage every kind of the parameter actually. Okay, the next. Yeah, here about the packaging for quality preservation. So packaging is not just a container. It is a technology for regulating the microenvironment. So if it's too open, we see water loss. But if it's too sealed, we risk the condensation and also decay. So we must match the packaging material, whether the paper or plastic, to specific physiology of the commodity. And the next, we can also controlling about the temperature and also the relative humidity management. So controlling temperature is, and also the RH is the most effective way to slow down the metabolism and also the microbial growth. For instance, our research show that the maintaining the dragon fruit at 15 degree of Celsius and 85% of RH significantly extended its sealable life compared to room temperature storage. Okay, so I think we can, the next slide, please. Yeah, here about the commodity specific handling. So one technology does not fit all. The leafy vegetable need high relative humidity and rapid cooling, while root crops require the proper curing and also the ventilation. So post-harvest protocol must be designed based on the unique physiology of the product, not just logistic convenience. Okay, the next is, so here about the quality preservation for market. I think it's just to make the summary. So ultimately, the quality preservation transfer a perishable into a reliable market product. So by managing the every step for harvest maturity to logistic control, we ensure the consistent quality, food safety, and also the compliance with buyer standard. So I think the next, please, we can, So this is the step 4 about the digital and supply chain innovation. So now let's look at how the digital revolution is providing new tools to monitor and also protect the produce throughout the supply chains. So digital technology for quality monitoring, we utilize an integrated information flow, IoT for sensing condition, AI for predicting the shelf life, and cloud and also big data for storage and integration, and blockchain for verify the traceability. This turns the physical data into the actionably logistic decision. Okay, the next, we will show about the transitioning from the localized monitoring to implementing the big data require a robust integrated two-kind platform. So based on this consideration, currently we're launching the initiation of the Horti Hub. So Horti Hub is the information data and stakeholder across the Indonesia's horticulture sectors, fruits, vegetable, and also ornamental. So beyond a simple directory or catalog, collaborative platform built to connect academics, researchers, industry actors, and also government bodies to the general public. So Horti Hub serves as first as a centralized big data infrastructure. So integrated the IoT, telemetric data, agroclimate parameters, and also biological indicator. And the second, the data becomes the input for the clustering engine like a K-means ML for predicting engine to produce output. And the third, the predicting as the real-time the traceability dashboard, route optimization, and also yield extrapolation for supply chain system. Okay, the next. Here about the On the other hand, we can also real-time logistic monitoring using an IoT based on intelligent system. So we can detect temperature deviation or route delay in the real time. This allows the actor to make the immediate decision, such as rerouting shipments or prioritizing of a phase sale, and to prevent the quality deterioration before it happens. Okay, next. Yeah, here about the collaborative supply chains and government. So this technology is only effective if it connect people to people. So the digital government so require a collaborative ecosystem where farmers, collectors, logistic providers, and also retailer share the data to support the transparent and also timely decision making. So I think we can next slide. Yeah, we can take it to. So let's read to conclude, summarize the most vital insight for building competitive horticulture supply chains. So the key insights that should be remembered, the biological sets the risk, but protection along the chain determines the outcome. So consistent quality earns market trust, and data-driven decision through IoT and also AI are what we make this risk visible and also manageable. Okay, I think we can next slide, please. So here about the future collaborative agenda. So our path forward involves the research priorities like the self-life modeling, technology pilots for real-time monitoring, and also the capacity building to ensure all supply chains actors can meet shared quality standard. I think that's all. Maybe the next. I think that's the last. Yeah. So thank you for your attention. We invite to your collaboration with our research center as we work together to strengthen the horticulture for future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nita, for the very informative and comprehensive presentation. Your presentation reminds us that fresh produce quality is shaped not only in the field, but also throughout the supply chain and needs data-supported decision-making. And the concept of collaboration is also very interesting for us to discuss today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the first discussion session. If there's a question for the speakers, you can raise your hands and please mention the speakers that you address your questions to. Is there any questions yet or in the chat box? Oh, okay. We have a question in the chat box. Let me read from Ibu Erika from Politeknik APP. Good afternoon, Professor Delwar Anwar and Ibu Dwinita. So I think the question will be for both of you. In food logistics, many stakeholders are involved. Although collaboration has many benefits, some companies are still reluctant to collaborate. How can this issue be addressed? She has 3 questions. Do you want me to read all 3? Or maybe you want to answer the first question, Professor Delwar?
Yes, I think the first questions, it's very much relevant with the paper that I presented today. So the important matter in these collaborations, whether in economics, there is 2 things. One is making the price, other one is getting the price. So whether in these equations, whether the producers, they can make the price instead of getting the price. So this horizontal collaboration, if it is successful, they're actually making the price, not getting the price. So in such case, yes, collaboration has many benefits. Some companies or even some people who actually getting the profit out of nothing, just doing the coordinations, they're getting the most of the profits. For example, if $1 is the farm gate value and they're selling $5, so between these $4 going for some people's pockets. Okay, so consumer is paying that. So in such cases, some people will be reluctant, and this is historically our nature as a human being. We have a nature of two natures. One is greediness, and other one is also the acceptance and honesty. So the people and the companies who actually try to manipulate the markets and others and making money, they will do that. But that's why the questions come horizontal collaborations. Without strong horizontal collaborations, the farmers cannot make the money. They actually take the money. So that's the answer to the first questions.
Yes, okay, let me read the second questions. What kind of support can the government provide to improve collaboration among stakeholders in the food supply chain? Maybe you have the experience of Australia about this, Professor Delwar?
I have the experience with Australia. I did not do the same model in overseas yet, but we started something in Vanuatu, but not finished yet. But yes, the government actually, instead of directly providing, the government cannot directly provide to the farmers those collaborations. So every industry, they have industry bodies. For example, we have a pineapple associations or pineapple industry bodies. So government providing the supports to those pineapple industry bodies. And then they actually providing, this industry body actually providing supports to the farmers. And its supports means it's not only the biological or agronomic supports, but also the operational supports, and also sometimes the startup supports. That's types of supports government provide, but government provide through the industry bodies.
Okay. The third question is, could you share some successful examples of collaboration?
So this pineapple is a tropical pines is a successful examples. Also, there is one avocado companies in Tuamba. I just forget the name, exact name. They are all very, very successful. They are very, very successful. They are actually using the same model. But in Australia, this tropical pines started in 1970, this model. And then now people started following this. And this is actually most likely appropriate for the small scale farming in Australian context or small landholders. In the horticulture sectors, most of the horticulture sectors in Australia are very small scale. But the cropping and grazing, they are very big, very, very big operators. So they probably work very differently. But the horticulture sectors is very good in this horizontal collaboration.
All right. Thank you, Professor Delwar. Dr. Dwinita, do you want to add some answers for these three questions before I go to the next question for you? Dr. Dwinita?
Yeah, sorry, is it maybe in the lack of the connection?
Oh,
So,
okay.
I just add more. Very much for the question. I add more. Thank you also, Prof. Delwar, for that. So I think it's also, yeah, maybe just to add the question. So I think for the first for the first thing step, I think it's important that we aligning our goal, the insight. So between the let's say the research, because with the research. So from this for the first time, so let's read the aligning. Oh, sorry, my connection maybe not good. Is there any notification? Sorry, maybe the lag. So I said the important aligning our goal in insight for the first time. So the aligning to our targets as let's say as also benefit. So and also this is related also in the government regulation like research insight. So in our research insight, we know the government support that with the regulation, the research inside our region must directly serve as a solution for the stakeholder. Let's say for industry problem or maybe another stakeholder. So this is the one thing that we can, the bridging about the research result, like let's say the innovation, and also as a solution of the problem in the stakeholder. So this is I think also the bridging the solution that we can care about a lot of problems that about the supply chain and also the product post-harvest.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Dwinita. So I hope that answers your question, Bu Erika. We have to show the benefits to the stakeholders so they would not be reluctant to collaborate, and also to align the research results with innovations and the downstreaming side of the technology. The next question is from Ibu Windy Hafsari. For Dr. Dwinita, what are the challenges faced during transportation when using IoT for perishable food products?
Yeah, so I think thank you for the question. I will try and hopefully we can make an answer. So I think we can optimize the IoT, and also any kind of the let's say the for smart system. Let's say we can share, we can use this big data to solve the problem and also doing the predicting. So also for the transporting, we can also the predicting about the perishable. We can predict. So how we can optimize on the still price. Let's say in horticulture, because the horticulture is very tricky for the handling of the primary of post-harvest, and also doing the wrapping and the making and storing in the on farm actually. So I think we can optimize of the IoT and also any kind of the so that's why we initiate the Horti Hub. So we can making all of the data and then big data, and also make a cloud, and also using as the input for modeling to predicting, and let's say the machine learning, or maybe to create the modeling another. Maybe I think hopefully can answering the question.
Okay, thank you, Bu Dwinita. I hope that answers your question, Bu Windy Hafsari. And I don't see any raised hand. I have one question for Professor Delwar. Okay. Pak Made, did you raise your hand? Do you have a question? Otherwise, I'm really curious. Based on Professor Delwar, based on your experience with regional economies and supply chains, what do you think lessons maybe from Australia that could be relevant for Indonesia's fresh horticultural supply chain, especially in regions where we have a very dispersed producers and complex logistics?
That's a very important questions, and also very complex. But in simple way, I should say that yes, we have some lessons from Australian sectors, and the models can be utilized in Indonesian context. And I was in Indonesia over the last 10 years several times. And I saw their complexity in the market in the society, in the infrastructures. So, and also their governance system. So in such complexity, those lessons probably not be implemented as it is, but they need to be curtailed to the context of the Indonesian context. But I still feel that the countries like Indonesia, these horizontal collaborations would work if the government and the producers organizations and also the commercial entity that work together. And if they want to make it happen, they actually can make it happen. And it is really very good for the producers. Particularly, I know that many of our farmers are very marginalized farmers and marginalized incomes. They are actually running their families, so that's probably very good.
Okay, thank you, Professor Delwar. The time is up for our discussion session. And if I can wrap up this first session, the key message from this session is that improving agri-food competitiveness requires both collaboration among supply chain actors and also primary post-harvest technology throughout the supply chain to protect product quality from farm to market. Professor Delwar and Dr. Dwinita, thank you very much for sharing with us. But please stay until the end of the webinar for the closing. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, now we will move to our next session. Our third speaker is Professor Huriat Babakan, the Director of International Research and Cluster Lead, CREST, Central Queensland University. Professor Babakan, are you here with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Dr. Sari.
Hello, good afternoon, Professor Huriat. Professor Huriat is inclusive economic development expert and also supply chains and circular economy, policy and governance, workforce development, climate change transition and resilience. She has numerous recognition and awards listed here, and she is now the Director of International Research, Central Queensland University, Professor of Economic and Policy Development in James Cook University, and also Chairperson for Regional Development Australia, Tropical North. She has more than 25 years in higher education, public-private partnership, and public sector policy leadership. So without further ado, her presentation is on agri-food supply chain policy in Australia. This topic is very important because strong supply chains require not only technology and collaboration, but also supportive policy frameworks, institutional coordination, and regional development perspectives. Professor Huriat, your time is 20 minutes and the screen and the times are yours.
Thank you very much. You can see my slides?
Yes, clearly.
So thank you for the invitation. I would like to acknowledge Dr. Lestari, all the distinguished speakers on the panel, of course you, Dr. Sari, for all your hard work, and ladies and gentlemen, I am not new to BRIN. Last year, I was a visiting professor in the Centre for Behavioural Economies and Circular Economy and Behavioural Economics. I work collaboratively with the Centre for Population, Centre for Education, and now I'm hoping with you. You've given my background. There's a little cartoon of me in the newspaper that came out, capturing all the areas I work in. Professor Delwar and I've done a lot of work around supply chains, stopping food waste, workforce, and a whole range of other research that's relevant to you. And lately I've been working with the agricultural sector across Queensland, which is a big province in Australia, developing climate and drought resilience plans from bottom up. There are 14 plans across Queensland, and I co-led 7 of them, working with over 5,000 stakeholders. So these are important issues in terms of how to influence policy, which is the topic of my talk today. Just also to say that Dr. Indra Irsyad from BRIN came and spent 3 months with us, with Dalwar, Professor Dalwar and myself, looking at mining supply chains. And in our regions, mining and agriculture are quite interlinked. Before I talk about policy, I think it's probably important to give you a little bit of background about our Australia and why policies are done the way they are. So Australia has is a big agricultural producer. It produces a whole range of products, grains, livestock, and horticulture. The gross value has been increasing over the last 20 years. And so this data is as of 2026. But we export quite a lot of our produce. About 70% of our agricultural produce is sent outside of Australia it's a big industry, $80 billion. So agricultural supply chains for exports is a big part of agriculture. Where do we export? We export all around the world: China, Japan, US, Korea, Southeast Asia, India, New Zealand, and so forth, and the Middle East. And we export different produce. Obviously, we have connection with Indonesia around cattle and other forms of export. So this is just by way of a quick background, because I only have 20 minutes. I haven't got time to go into it, but it's important to understand this context, because when we come to policy, supply chain policy is not one thing, it's many things in the context of Australia. Australian supply chains are quite fragile and volatile. Most of the supply chains link us from north to south, and yet our connectivity across northwest and east to west is more important. So what we find is we have long supply chains and poor infrastructure, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But this map shows the way supply chain routes, particularly freight routes, operate within Australia. For example, can you see my cursor? On the right-hand corner here, where the blue dot is where I live, on the tip of Australia. And mangoes, this is a high mango area, and yet mangoes get shipped down to Brisbane, 2,000-3,000 kilometres south, and then get reshipped back to where we are, to the supermarkets. So it is a long and complex supply chain system in Australia. This is due to vast continent and only a population of 27 million. So economies of scale and infrastructure become big challenges. When we talk about supply chains, it's similar to what Professor Dalwar showed. It's production, processing, storage, all the things that you understand as supply chains in any other country. We are highly dependent on transport, logistic networks. Trade agreements are particularly important, given 70% of our produce is exported, and climate-sensitive production systems are critical. Just also a little bit more context. Australia is an interesting case study because it shows advanced export agricultural supply chains. It shows challenges of distance and climate vulnerability. It shows biosecurity governance. We're very strict. Any of you traveling to Australia will know that, bringing in a plant is like committing a crime. So very strong biosecurity. Agriculture is also high resource intensive. It uses 68% water, 57% land use, 12% of our exports, about 6% of rural employment, and about 2% of value add to our GDP. So in that sense, you get a sense of the picture of what agricultural supply chains has to deal with in the context of Australia. I mentioned that our supply chains is vulnerable. That photo is an example of how our trucks and the types of roads they traverse to take goods across Australia, particularly Northern Australia, and I'll talk about that in a minute. During COVID, we saw how fragile and how vulnerable. We saw that we were at national risk of supply chain. So climate and extreme weather, we have high cyclones and bushfires, severe weather, flooding. We have logistical challenges, long transport distances, remote farming regions, high transport costs, limited cold chain and storage difficulties. We have very poor infrastructure, and we have difficulties with digital connectivity. And when our previous speaker was talking about IoT, etc., quite a lot of that depends on digital connectivity. More recently, this would be true of many parts of the world, rising fuel costs and rising inflation. Significant workforce challenges, aging farmers. The average age of our farmer is 48 years, and that's up from 44 5 years ago. Skills and labour shortages during harvest time, and the next level of agriculture is quite tech intensive, and so it needs different skill sets. And in the references in my slides, I wrote a whole piece on agricultural workforce, so feel free to dig up that journal article and read it. Biosecurity, digital divide, tech adoption is very challenging. So all of these challenges are in the agribusiness supply chains. And as you can see, one policy is not going to fix that. I also conducted work across Northern Australia. You will see this map where it is a cut across the top part of Northern Australia. It's 53% of the land mass, 5% of the population, 12% of GDP, mostly mining. It's about 84% native title and indigenous populations. We have thin markets. That means we can't get supplies of things through normal market processes, which leads supply chains vulnerable, and also high infrastructure costs. We have significant transport challenges. This is an example. We have 6 months of the year with severe weather challenges. Rail and road options are there, particularly for cattle, but as we said, cattle travels 3,000 to 5,000 kilometres to get to markets. And each port or airport is significantly challenged. We haven't got enough routes. We don't have big, wide-body passenger planes. We don't have enough volume for the planes. Ports don't have necessarily the level of depth that requires bigger ships and vessels to come in, and storage and handling facilities are limited, especially cold storage. So I did this study. I've put the reference. This was a government-funded study around looking at what happens across Northern Australia, and it is a good case study because it shows the policy fragmentation. We worked with about 120 stakeholders to do this work, and we said, how can we reframe supply chains? How can we make them smarter across Northern Australia? Instead of sending everything south, how do we get east-west connectivity? How do we reduce logistical costs? How do we create interoperable transport routes and multimodal supply chain infrastructure? Workforce challenges, poor connectivity to the Asia Pacific, even though that's where we export to. And the last one is the policy piece. We have 3 levels of government, and what we saw was that there was total fragmentation, some policy failure, and also complexity and duplication of what each layer of government is doing around both agriculture and supply chain infrastructure. The other thing that we saw, and this is from our Productivity Commission, is that in rural and remote areas, adaptive capacity is very poor. So where you're seeing orange and yellow, that is not a good sign. It is not a sign of resilience. So what we're seeing is we're seeing all of these challenges across supply chains, but we're also seeing poor adaptive capacity due to remoteness, due to productivity, due to infrastructure failures and skills failures. So adaptive capacity is limited across rural, remote areas, which is where agriculture tends to take place. I'll just skip this slide in the name of, in the sake of time. Australian government was concerned about this. They set up the Office for Supply Chain Resilience, and they're looking at vulnerability. They're looking at criticality and how do we get, where and when do we get supply disruptions? How do we identify and manage risk? And how do we develop the best policies to manage these risks? So we have actually a new Office of Supply Chain Resilience that looks at these kinds of issues. So it's the framework. Now, why look at policy? I'm an ex-senior government public servant. Policy shapes possibility. And as Mahatma Gandhi said, it leads to action. So the challenges of supply chains, agricultural supply chains, are interconnected. They're not just one thing. For example, climate variability influences infrastructure, the policy implications. Biosecurity threats for agriculture linked with border control and surveillance. Long transport distances are about investment in interoperable transport systems and multimodal supply chains. Labour shortages are about international migration, domestic migration, and workforce policy. Port congestion is around trade facilitation reforms. Absence of air routes is about aviation initiatives and incentives. Digital fragmentation limits our traceability and provenance. Global shocks limit our supply chain diversification. And public policy has to address all of these to make agri-supply chains resilient. And it's a big ask from government, from different arms of government, and also from a policy connectivity perspective. In response to these connectivity, the Australian government's agri-supply policy interest areas have been on a number of levels. So they've looked at things like food security. How do we create domestic food security? How do we create agricultural supply chains in climate and market shocks? They've been very concerned about. Carbon emissions and sustainability. How do we maintain our trade competitiveness in the face of tariffs and major global change around trade conditions? How do we get our farmers to adopt technologies and digital transformation for around things like food waste and food transport and storage? Biosecurity, protection from invasive pests. That one fruit fly nearly damaged all of our banana industry, the Asian fruit fly. Infrastructure development, supply chains, workforce, regional development, because communities are part of the agricultural supply chain. Climate resilience, circular economy. At the moment, I'm doing a project with BRIN on circular economy in the textile industry. Freight and logistics efficiency. We're also talking in Australia about manufacturing capability and future made in Australia policy, looking at how do we not send everything offshore to China, Vietnam, and other parts of Asia. How do we build advanced manufacturing? And I'm doing some work on that as well, and emergency preparedness. So you can see the areas of concern that the Australian government has started to engage with policy. Here's a list of the policies. Of course, I haven't got time to go into them, but what I'm going to do is pull some lessons out from them. But you can see, National Freight and Supply Chain Strategy, National Action Plan for Freight, Office of National Supply Chain Resilience, and so forth. These are all going to the core of strengthening supply chain resilience in agriculture and also other supply chains. Diesel at the moment is a big issue for farming and supply chains. A regional connectivity program is about digital connectivity in remote and rural areas. And the Future Drought Fund is about drought and climate, and that's around agricultural resilience. That's the 7 plans that I led that I mentioned has been funded under this scheme, this program. So what do we need as infrastructure? The needs are greater than what government can invest. These are the Australian government's infrastructure priorities for 2026. As with any government, there's a lot of lobbying, pulling, pushing from communities, from businesses as to where should priority take. Regions with lower populations and lower votes don't get a look in. It's very difficult. If you're 5% of the population and 53% of the land mass, you are not going to get the kind of priority that areas that are more densely populated, just due to the way the election systems and the political systems work. But having said that, you can see that the Australian government has productivity and freight network infrastructure, ports and connectivity, high capacity transport, water and net zero infrastructure, particularly renewable energy, as its 5 priority areas for investment. So that would all benefit. Of course, this is not just for agriculture, but agriculture will also benefit from this. I just want to also quickly tell you that supply chain policy didn't just happen. It came, any government has a philosophy, depending on which party and political persuasion, whether they're coalitions. It's same everywhere in the world. Between the 1990s and 2000s, we were all about market liberalisation. Let's free up everything. Let's open ourselves to competition, global exports, competitiveness, and deregulation. This really knocked off a lot of our agricultural business. For example, the dairy business in Queensland went from 100% dairy production to about 30% production because we were not ready for global competition. So this era of policies really had a big impact on agriculture. Then into 2010s, we started realizing that we need to put some support behind agricultural supply chain resilience. So we started looking at infrastructure modernization. We started looking at bringing in people, the regional development aspect, which I'm the chair of Regional Development Australia, appointed by our federal minister, and water reform, because agriculture is a big user of water. So again, we started seeing forward-looking, more sustainability shifts, and not protection as such, because we are committed to free trade agreements, but basically to try and gear up our suppliers to be competitive across the supply chain, also looking at what inputs come in for agriculture and so forth. Jump to 2020s, we started seeing things very differently. Climate threats are becoming more understandable by most of the populations, including the politicians. So we started looking at a risk, resilience, and security focus in policy. The policy started to look at how can we build critical infrastructure to protect us? How can we build farmer resilience? How can we build food systems resilience? How can we build digital resilience through traceability and sustainability? So the shift has gone from efficiency and market mechanisms to infrastructure, now to resilience. So our policies reflect this. A lot of the policies I'm talking are at the national level. We also have what we call state, which is like your provinces, and we also have local government. I haven't got time to touch upon them. Just in Queensland, there are 77 local governments. So I cannot go through all of these, but, basically one of the things is that policy priorities shifted after numerous disruptions, particularly post-COVID. We realised how fragile we are and moved to this resilience policy model. And efficiency is still there, but with the language that's replacing efficiency is productivity. So Despite all of these progressing elements, we still have significant policy gaps. There are many areas that supply chain resilience, agri-supply chains resilience is vulnerable. There is a lack of coordination, particularly between the federal and state government. In some areas they are coordinating, but in many areas they aren't. For example, around digital connectivity, the federal government will come and roll out policies and programs. Then next thing you know, the state's doing the same thing. And for a period we have duplication, then they realize there's duplication and they stop, and then we have nothing. So that fragmentation and lack of coordination across policy and regulatory levels is a big risk. Remote regions still face major disadvantages. This is where most of our agribusinesses are and farmers, primary producers are. We have single supply chains that create vulnerabilities. Most of it is in that map I showed you, north-south. If there's any failure along that line, in that linear method, then the farmers and the producers are at risk. Smaller farms are struggling with all of the compliance costs around biosecurity, exporting, and so forth. I mentioned that we have a significant Indigenous population. Their participation across the agricultural supply chains remains limited, and government is trying to have policies around this. Long-term climate adaptation is not developing very well. We also have differences between where the federal government wants to go, where the state, because we have different political parties. And the other aspect is when you're looking at supply chain policy, what the private sector doing and what the public sector do and the partnerships is critical. And sometimes we have they're out of kilter from each other. There isn't the coordination that's required to make that public-private coordination work, because if it doesn't, then we have policy failures or company failures. So it's really important that the policy look towards getting this coordination right between private investment and public investment. So what have we learned? We've learned that we have to go from efficiency to resilience. Efficiency alone leaves us vulnerable in the supply chains. We have to move away from only looking at siloed agriculture policy to a more systems governance framework that looks at those different policies, transport, energy, water. These all sit in different departments, and yet we have to somehow bring them together for agricultural benefit and supply chain benefit. We also have been seeing a trend towards centralized control, centralized governance and regulation. We need to move towards a more collaborative form of governance where both the industry, state, local and federal government needs to have partnerships to get that effectiveness and efficiency of the policy to happen. If we don't have that collaboration, again, we will get significant policy failures. So my concluding remarks are that supply chain policy, while we've made a long effort and a big effort over several decades, it still needs coordination, it needs industry action, it needs diversification, and it needs capability. We need better risk sharing mechanisms, and we need policy to support and facilitate that. We need policy to better coordinate collaboration across different layers of government and industry. And finally, I love this academic Crosby's work where he talks about we in Australia, and a lot of policy is short-term because policy governments are elected for 3 or 4 years. So we have short-term emergency responses. Rather than doing that, we need to really move towards long-term resilience. At the moment, everyone's reacting to fuel. At the moment, everyone's reacting to inflation. What we need to do is take a step back and look at it as a whole system of governance and a long-term integrated approach that brings in food security, national security, agricultural competitiveness and productivity, and our economic strategy. And if we don't do that, we are not going to be resilient. Just some of my resources that I've used, the references. I've put my own references in there as well, if you're interested. And I thank you for your time, terima kasih, and my contact details.
Thank you very much, Professor Hurriyat. It's a very valuable policy perspective for all of us, I think. And the statement, one policy won't fix everything, is, I think, it's a bottom line for this topic. And the list of policies in Australia is very impressive and inspiring, very comprehensive. And Australia, in fact, faces geographical challenges also, like Indonesia, and a very important quote is policy shapes possibility. So, Professor Hurriyat, please stay with us. We will have the discussion session after the next speaker. Dr. Yuanita, are you present? Okay, thank you, Professor Dr. Yuanita. Good afternoon, and thank you for your time joining us today. Dr. Yuanita is from Institut Teknologi Bandung, School of Business and Management. Her expertise include operations and supply chain management, agriculture, supply chain coordination and sustainability, circular economy, value chain thinking, food logistics, gamification, service science, and creative economy. She did her PhD program in Management Science, Institut Teknologi Bandung, and her professional activities now, besides as a lecturer in Operations and Supply Chain Management, SBM ITB, also associated with the Indonesian Supply Chain and Logistics Institute, and also reviewer for journals and consulting for smart agriculture and regional economic roadmaps. She has numerous publications and research experience, and your presentations today is entitled Building Resilient and Sustainable Agriculture and Food Supply Chains, Operations, Collaboration, and Circular Economy Perspective. Dr. Yuanita, you have 20 minutes for your presentation. The screen and the time are yours. Would you like to share your own screen, Dr. Yuanita?
Assume that someone will have, okay, wait, yeah.
Excuse me, your voice is not loud enough.
Okay. Not clear?
Not very much.
Is it better?
Okay, much better.
Okay then. Okay, so let me share my screen, yeah. Okay then. So first of all, I would like to say thank you for to Bu Sari, yeah, for the opportunity that invited me to this sharing session. And I also want to say thank you for the Research Organization for Agriculture and Food from BRIN Indonesia, and also Center for Regional Economics and Supply Chain from Central Queensland University, Australia, yeah, to make it happen. So actually, to be the latest speaker is quite challenging because I think it's already already discussed by the previous speakers, yeah, but I hope I can share something different, yeah, with you all. So here, what is interesting about agriculture or food supply chain compared to the previous speakers, that will be interconnecting concept or what to call it, framework, yeah. But here I would like to highlight the resilient and sustainable agriculture and food supply chain, and then I will focus on three things. So how to run the resilient and sustainable food supply chain, and how to connect the people, since we're talking about the supply chain itself, and then how we try to implement the circular economy, yeah, to close the loop in the supply chain. So here, what we will discuss. So first, I would like to explain the challenge that we face in the global and also Indonesia food system. And then we will discuss it based on the three lenses: the operations, how the operations or the processes connect to each other. And then I would like to highlight more about the food loss, yeah, and food waste, and then how we try to collaborate with the stakeholders in supply chain. The collaboration and coordination already mentioned before by the previous speakers, but then I would like to highlight specifically regarding the smallholders, farmers, and then the circular economy to close the loop, that we hope that it can turn the waste into a new value, and then we can create a new revenue, yeah. And the last one, I think Bu Dwinita already mentioned also about this digital and traceability, since it's supply chain, and then to make sure that there is an interconnection between each chain itself, and then make sure that the chain is transparent for the other stakeholders. So we need this one. So let me begin with these two keywords, yeah, resilient and also sustainable. So this is two keywords, but then these two ideas actually it needs its other, yeah. If we're talking about resilience, so we're talking about disruption, then we're talking about the ability that we can do to what we call it, face this disruption happen, and then how we bounce back quickly, yeah. So if we're talking about the supply chain itself, it's quite complex because the processes it's vary, and then the stakeholders also we have a lot of stakeholders in it. So if disruption happens, so how we can absorb, how the supply chain can absorb the sudden disruption or the sudden shocks, and then how the supply chain can recover and adapt fast, and make sure that we have buffers, yeah, to avoid those redundancy. And then the sustainability itself, it's talking about the ability how we can keep producing for the next decades, yeah. But then we need to make sure that it cannot, those production activity cannot harm the soil. If we're talking about the food supply chain, it still protect the soil, the bio, how we can implement biodiversity, how we can use water, what do you call it, and use the input wisely, and then how we keep the resources in the loop by implementing the circular economy. So actually, if we only focus on one thing, resilience or only sustainability, so it cannot work, yeah. So we really need to make sure that we consider those two when we want to build our food system. So this is the current challenge in agri-food supply chain. So it happens globally, actually. So we're talking about the climate change, and then this climate volatility has impact to the production decline. So we know that there's information that the production of agriculture product will be decrease by 35% by 2050. And then this is also the other issue, yeah, that contradict each other. On one side, we have one third, yeah, we have food loss or wasted globally. But on the other hand, 1 in 11 people still face food insecurity. So that's quite shame for us. But then here, if we're talking about the food loss, so it happens most of the time related to the post-harvest losses. That's why Bu Dwinita already talking about the post-harvest technology, yeah, to minimize those food loss. But in developing country, the numbers quite large, is 15 until 40%. And then it's also mentioned by Prof. Hardiat that supply the cold chain gaps, it's still also faced by the Australia, yeah, and it's also happened in Indonesia that the cold chain coverage is still, yeah, minimum, yeah, or limited. And then the other critical pain point, rather than climate change, it's also the disease outbreaks, the plant and animal disease. It can also cause major production losses and logistic disruptions. Yeah, if there is still infrastructure gaps and also transportation challenge, so it will also have impact to the cost of supply chain. So we can see here that the supply chain disruption can have impact. Give impact to the cost, services, quality, sustainability, and also resilience. But then, what is the insight from this challenge? So we have multi-level disruptions, and if we're talking about supply chain, so it's creating complex challenges, yeah, and it requires integrated solution. Then that's why I want to highlight from those 3 lenses: the operations, the collaboration, and also the circular economy principles. So here, what happened in Indonesia? So it's already mentioned also by previous speakers that Indonesia is, yeah, it's 4th most populous country. We also have more than 17,000 islands, and then yeah, Prof. Dewa also mentioned in Australia, there's also a smallholder farmer. Yeah, in Indonesia, it's more than 90% of our agriculture production. Yeah, is held by these smallholder farmers. Yeah, that has limited access to information, has limited access to finance, and then has low bargaining power. So then, we see here that Indonesia, based on the availability and affordability of the food itself, so it's quite high. So it's easier for us to get the agricultural product, and the price is also affordable. But then from the quality, based on the quality, natural resources, and also resilience, so then the level, it's the lowest among our Asian peers country. Yeah, so what does that mean? It means that the government can give us the food. Yeah, it's easy for us to get the food, but then the system itself, the agriculture system itself, is very fragile. So we really need to do something about it. Yeah, so if we zoom it into the food loss, so what happened in Indonesia, so more than 12 until 21 million ton we have food loss every year, and it's equal to 300 kilogram food loss and waste per person per year. Yeah, and based on the global food waste by country, so Indonesia ranks among the world top 5 for this food loss and waste. And this is another challenge in the food supply chain in Indonesia. So since we are archipelagic country, so then we really need this multimodal distribution, or transportation. So we try to, it's important for us to integrate between sea, land, air, and air transport. But then what happened today, the inter-island logistics still very challenging. The lead times can take 2 until 3 times longer. And then, as I mentioned before, the cold chain coverage still only 20%, since the agriculture, most of agricultural product need this cold chain. So it's really we need to do something about it. And then the coverage, if we take a look at the logistic performance by regions, it's still dominated by Java and Bali Island. So so this is what we really need to improve to mitigate the food loss and waste across the value chain. So if we take a look at from these 3 lenses, and this is the illustration of the simple food chains, but the reality is more complex than this one. But then the process is from production, post-harvest, logistic, and also market. From the operations lens, we try to make sure that this process running, or this link is running well and interconnect to each other, to give us an effective and also efficient supply chain. But here, since there may be different stakeholders involved in each processes, so then we need to make sure that the actors is connecting those dots, those links, by having coordination or partnership strategy, or using this cooperative mechanism. And the last one, we try to close the loop. So then we try to limit the waste. So the waste from what one processes can be an input for the other link. So from the resilient supply chain framework, so this is actually the steps that we can implement. First, try to sense or have a predictive analytics. So based on the historical data, based on the information that you have, so we really need to make a prediction. What will happen next, and then don't forget to have a risk analysis, assess what risks that in the future may happen, so how we can mitigate that. And then don't forget to implement a flexibility in our supply chain, so then we can adapt easily if disruption comes. And don't forget about the quality, the implementation of good agricultural product, and then process, and then the cold chain design, and assure that each member in the supply chain is easier to trace what happened during the process, or in the supply chain itself. Here is the example of what happened in rice, Indonesia rice supply chain. So actually, most of agriculture supply chain in Indonesia has a very long chain, very long processes, a lot of actors involved in it, and if we're talking about the food loss, so it can be the number, it can be more than 12 and 10 until 20%. So it's reality. So then we really need to make sure the next target will in the supply chain is to reduce this food loss during the supply chain, in the supply chain. And then how we try to make it happen or to improve that. So we really need to improve our partnership strategies or the collaboration models. So the models that we really need to take a look at is the related to the smallholder farmers. So then how we try to create a cooperative, then that we try to make sure that the smallholder farmer can get benefit from this cooperative by pull volume, and then they can also share knowledge about how to improve their quality. And then by sharing information about the market, about the price, so then these smallholder farmers can also increase their bargaining power. So by having these coordinations, yeah, there is research. So then by we have a same situation for the we cannot do anything about the climate, and then the crop is still the same, the farmers also the same, but then if we try to put coordination in it, so then it will increase the performance of the supply chain, yeah, and decrease the food loss. So then that's show the importance of collaboration models and also the partnership strategy. So here is the concept of smallholder cooperative and also farmer organization that we can develop. Yeah. So for the cooperative models, the cooperative itself can be a service hub and also input and output hub that centralize the input supply and also the marketing hub for the farmers. So it's easier for the farmers to sell the product, and also by sharing the knowledge or try to connect the academic with this farmer, the smallholder farmer. So we can create or increase the quality of the product and give premium pricing, yeah, because we also develop farmers, or we increase the capability of farmers by certified the quality by having the certified quality products. And also the financial services, since smallholder farmers has limited access to the financing supply chain, so it's also important. But the other support needs is the registration and legal compliance, yeah, the financial management training, and also digital platform adoption is still needed. And then this is the third lenses. Yeah, we're already talking about the collaboration of the strategy, but then here the food loss itself is talking about the how we can create value. Then we call it as a waste if we cannot do anything about it afterwards. Yeah, but then if from the previous output, it became another input for another processes. So then, and after that, we can create new value and new revenue from it. So yeah, that's the implementation of this circular economy. So in Indonesia, actually, it's already common now, yeah, about the implementation of black soldier larva to what we call it, to process the food waste, and then we use those the larva to protein feed and also for the organic fertilizer. But then the implementation is not that smooth, yeah. So the farmer itself, they still think that the chemical fertilizer is better because the result is instant compared to this organic fertilizer. So the policy from the government itself is we still need that support, yeah, to implement the circular economy in Indonesia. So this is several other example of the coffee value chain that's already implemented. So not only the bean that has value, but now the cascara is also has a high value, yeah, that can give us new revenue from it. And this is another example of the circular economy. So the end-to-end circular economy implementation in Indonesia can be from this dairy farming, yeah, from the biogas and also the nutrient cycling and cost reduction. Now, above all, so the transparency of the in the food supply chain system is also important. Therefore, digitalization and also internet of things need to be implemented here. So by implement this one, we hope that it will increase the performance of our supply chain. And so to conclude my presentation, so here is 5 pillars for resilient sustainable food system. The first thing is we really need to organize early how we can bring those smallholders, farmers together. So that's the foundation of all. And then what we can do to reduce the loss first, try to implement those food supply chain resilience and sustainable together. And then we have a important supporting or important infrastructure. So the cold chain itself and digitalization, so we try to implement it, to also decrease the number of the food loss. And don't forget to it's really important for us to implement the circular economy to closing the loop in the supply chain. And risk analysis also important to anticipate and then make sure that we have an early warning system, if some disruption happens, so we already know what to do. So this is how the concept from the first speakers, the second and the third connected each other, and that's what we need to improve our agriculture food system. I think that's all for me. So let's get back to you, Bu Sari. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yuanita, for the insightful presentation. This is a very important reminder that resilient food supply chains require not only efficient operation, but also collaborative governance, circular resource use, and sustainable business models. We will now move to the second discussion session. Professor Harriet, the committee, can you please pin Professor Harriet so I can see her? I saw that one question has been answered by Professor Harriet in the chat box from Pak Yogi Purwaraharjo about how the Gulf War has caused land transportation costs to rise due to limited fuel supplies. Do you think Australia will consider using sea transportation to reduce fuel consumption and transportation costs? Do you want to explain further or add some answers, Professor Harriet?
I think just to add that, yes, we are looking at lower fuel consumption, but our ports are not equipped. We have many ports that are not deep sea ports. Some of them do not have storage or cold chain facilities. So moving to sea doesn't work for all commodities. Some commodity, and sea is slower, Australia is big, so perishables are at risk. We already use sea for a lot of our grains, for example. We already are using that. But also because Australia is so big, even if you get it to port, compared to smaller countries, there's still that last mile of delivery, which is not a little mile, it's a big mile. We say last mile, but it's not small, from port to where it needs to go. So I think we are looking at that. Our government is reviewing its port and sea facilities. Also, some of the international ships are not coming to Australia because the size of the market isn't that big anymore. 27 million people is not a big market. Indonesia, while it faces a lot of the geographic challenges, you have scale because of your population. So Australia is double jeopardy because it doesn't have the scale of population, but it also has the scale of the land mass. So those factors will be a consideration. We are using sea more for food security, for example, up towards the top of Australia, towards Papua New Guinea, Torres Straits, Cape York, all of those top parts of Australia. We currently service with companies like C. Smith, they're semi-government authorities because privately it's not profitable, and they supply food to those communities to ensure food security. So yes, there may be a shift, but we're going to be still limited in how quickly we can change to sea transport.
Okay, thank you. That's a very different point of view compared to Indonesia's challenges, but I think we are facing the same problems during this war. There's a question for Professor Delwar and Professor Huriat. I will ask Professor Huriat to answer first, and if Professor Delwar is present now, you can also add your answers. Based on your expertise and opinion, which approach is more suitable from various storage methods, such as cold supply chain irradiation, edible coating, or packaging manipulation, such as modified atmosphere packaging, to extend the shelf life of horticulture products to be implemented in the tropical context, and how Australia is tackling ugly food and industrial food from hotels, restaurants, cafes, which often has leftovers to reduce food waste. Do you want to answer first, Professor Huriat? I think this is also a question for Dr. Dwinita, but maybe you
Yes,
first.
yes, I think we should start with Dr. Yunita and I'll come in because,
Yeah.
you know, the Australian context is different than the Indonesian context.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so, and I'll definitely answer number 2.
Yes,
Second
please.
question.
How Australia is tackling ugly food and industrial food.
Dr. Yunita, are you going to go first and answer that first question, or
So
shall
the
I
first
jump?
questions, I think is for Bu Dwinita. Bu
Yeah,
Sari,
I think, yeah.
talking about
Bu Dwinita masih di
was
sini
our
kan?
first
Yeah, sorry. I thought they were
technology.
Yes,
you-
that's what I thought too.
Our name is quite sim, right? So, yes. Can you repeat again?
Okay,
Bu Sari?
based
Sorry.
on your expertise and opinion, which approach is more suitable from various storage methods, cold supply chain, irradiation, edible coating, or packaging, such as MAP, to extend the shelf life of horticultural products to be implemented in the tropical context?
Okay.
Did
So
you
I
get
think, yeah, sorry. Okay, thank you for the question. So I think in BRIN, and not only in a research center of horticulture actually, because we know in the BRIN is we have a lot of approach in a lot of research center. So I think in storage we have a lot of also the approach actually. So for the storage we applicate for the atmospheric. So in another research center, I think this is also suitable for especially for the horticulture, and another for commodities, and also for the edible coating. Edible coating is also available. We have the technology, I think. So also in another research center, we also develop the technology of packaging. So edible packaging. Now we start also for the packaging. So more approach, I think, is have the positive. It's related with the it's based on the what of the commodities and what of the characteristic, and we have any kind of the technology that we optimize and also apply related collaborating with the industry. So I think it is available, and also for Australia, I think it's a good chance also for develop the initiative collaboration, and also develop the new, and also for ITB we have a lot of also for the collaboration. So I think this is the era for the open collaborating, to initiate the collaborating, to develop of the new technology, and also it's based on the our problem also. I think that's all. So hopefully it's answering with the question, I think.
Thank you, Bu
And-
Dwinita. Do you
And
want to
I'll
add
jump in
something?
here. Each of
Okay.
those methodologies have their strengths and limitations. So a cold chain may reduce stress on the produce, but it may be more costly and not energy efficient, or some of the other methods may not be heat tolerant, etc. So we can spend, in tropical conditions, we can spend time analyzing the pros and cons. I think there is no one method. I think we used to use complementary methods. I think cold chain is the one that's used most widely because it's most effective. But, you know, MAP and others are complementary, and depending on the produce and the commodity. So industry is using different methods, and it depends, you know, on the commodity, it depends on the farmer's knowledge, it depends on infrastructure outlays required, and it depends on regulation, coming back to policy, what is required for this. So I think it's not a simple answer of this is the best, but I think it's a mixture of strategies across all of those four.
Yeah, agree to that, Professor Huria. Do you want to answer the second question?
Yes, so
right away?
second question is Australia has invested a lot of energy around trying to put industrial and food, restaurant accommodation, especially in high tourism areas. It's done this through a number of ways. So it's set up a Stopping Food Waste CRC. Professor Delwar can speak to that. That's come up with a whole range of policy recommendations. In many areas, the government has set targets by 2030, 2050 to try and minimize that. We have food collection systems, so food that's not touched is distributed to the poor and other areas so that the restaurant is not wasting the food. There's consumer education packages around how to stop tackling waste, educating staff. There's fines, so there's the punitive element as well. So it's incentive-based, education-based. It's a big topic. We're not near our targets yet, and the government is putting a lot of effort. Some of the food recycling, if you like, and redistribution has been challenged because those not-for-profit organisations that collect and distribute to poorer people haven't got the distribution mechanisms or the storage mechanisms. Also, retailers are in the same boat. For example, supermarkets redistribute bread, give away free, you know, products that are on the verge of perishing or used by date, they donate them to charity. So there's a concerted effort going on, but we are nowhere near reducing food waste. Professor Dalwar and I looked at food waste in the horticultural industry, and we developed an action strategy for Australia's horticulture industry with all of the key stakeholders around the table. Professor Dalwar led that. He can talk to that. And then we did some commodity-specific things around the melons and bananas. So it is quite integrated. You can see those action plans that we developed. That did not include the restaurants and cafes because that's a separate piece of work, but we are aware of the policy and practice framework, but it needs more monitoring, it needs more resources, and it needs more effective implementation mechanisms, and that's where we're downfalling a little bit. I might just hand it to Professor Dalwar to see if he wants to answer one
Professor
or two
Delwar.
as well.
Yeah, we would like to hear your explanation about this. Professor Delwar, are you still with us? You're still muted. Professor Delwar, we cannot hear you. You're still muted. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now? Okay.
Yes.
What was the second question was?
How Australia is tackling horticultural produce and industrial food from hotels, restaurants, cafes, which often has less leftovers to reduce food waste. Did you
Well,
get
we
that?
just recently, one of our researcher, he actually doing the behavior change survey, whether any economic incentives or any other way people can change this behavior, because this is the beyond the production, the food waste beyond the production lines. So this is completely relevant with the consumers, not the productions. So productions, there is a food waste in the packing shed in the industry as well, but this can be collected, monitored, and we can produce the value-added product on this one. But those what we actually food waste at the household level or restaurant level, this very difficult to collect and also not able to produce the value-adding product. Not able in most cases. So in such case, behavior change, people's behavior change is extremely important. So we just recently got one very large project. We are looking at the southeast corner of Queensland. That's about, I think about 5 or 6 council. So we are doing the household survey. We are doing some of the experiment, whether some types of behavior or the packaging or some types of braking systems can work to change the people's behavior.
Thank you, Professor Delwar.
Can I also just add one more thing on that question?
Sure, Professor.
In Australia, in the past, if you didn't eat, finish your food at the restaurant, you left it. Or if you wanted to take it away, you had to pay for a plastic container. Now, it's very commonplace that you ask for a container and they happily give it free. And these are usually biodegradable containers that you put the leftover of your food and take it with you. So the restaurant doesn't waste it and you can take it. So we're seeing that more and more, but that requires both a systemic approach from the restaurant and governments and also consumer behavior change.
Yeah, that's a good idea actually. I saw that in Japan, they have a doggy bag or something to take. Yeah. Pak Imade Suparta Utama, apakah ingin bertanya?
Okay.
Please, silakan
Thank
Pak.
you, Sari. I just introduced myself. I'm Imade Utama from Udayana University of Bali. Yeah, talking about the tourism and the agriculture is interesting in Bali. So we had a project. We have been doing this project from 2024 by up to 2028, Agri for Tourism. So entitled, the theme of the project is creating resilient community through smallholder inclusive tourism market in Indonesia. So we have 3 different locations of the project: Bali, Lombok, and North Sulawesi. So we select these 3 locations because they have what they call that 3 different timeline of the story about the agriculture and tourism as well. So in the case of Bali, because I'm the country coordinator of the project, as well as the manager of the project in Bali, you know, talking about the agri for tourism. So we have been done a baseline survey. So we got 3 different.
Amade, apakah bisa langsung ke pertanyaannya, Pak?
Okay.
Maaf.
This is not a question, actually. I just want to share my, what you call it, my experience. So my project right now is how to develop the collaboration, you know, among all of the actors. So because the collaboration is not only interacting each actor, but this also co-development, co-design, co-creating the values. So that's we now is not talking just about the value chain analysis. So we now doing something like a value network analysis, because we don't just analyze the linear process of creating value, but different variables, how this system can be can achieve of our goal, resilient community. So I have to, what they call that, bring this project to beyond the value chain analysis. So that's
Pertanyaannya Pak Made
comment.
ditujukan ke siapa? Silakan Pak.
Ditujukan, to Ibu Yuanita, probably also Professor Delwar, because Professor Delwar has what they call that research also for specifically for the pineapple in Australia. Okay, thank you.
Bisa diulang pertanyaannya tepatnya Pak Made? Ke
You
Bu
said
Yuanita
that
dan Profesor Delwar.
a collaboration. So we have to define the collaboration. What is the collaboration? Because the collaboration for me in terms of agritourism is co-development, co-design, and many things that we have to consider. That the challenge that I face, when we create what they call the system, how to integrate the farmers as to the tourism market. So what the collaboration that you said that the collaboration, what the collaboration of your, that meaning,
Okay.
that was
Thank you, Pak Made.
Okay.
Did you get that, Bu Yuanita? I think he asked about the type or the kind or the example of collaboration.
Okay, so thank you, Pak Made, for pointing out, so for highlighting those value co-creations. So I think Pak Made, he wants to explore more about the value creation that may happen during the collaborations. So I agree with you, Pa. So then the linear value creation itself in our, especially in our agricultural food supply chain, I think it needs to be more than that, the linear one. So the value co-creation is really important since, as I mentioned before, the chain itself, it's very challenging here in Indonesia. And then there is several stakeholders or several actors that has limited information and also a limited bargaining power. For example, our smallholder farmers. So it's important then for us to just talk together, have discussion, and then define what kind of value actually that we want to create, for not only for the farmer itself, but the whole supply chain. So the communication, the discussions is really important, especially for our smallholder farmers. We really need to increase their capability, so therefore the quadruple and then the help from the academic, from the support from the policy. It's also important to define what kind of value creations that we want to build here. So I agree with you, Pak, to make sure that we can create something new, an innovation in regarding the tourism and agricultural itself.
Thank you, Bu Yuanita. Professor Delwar, do you want to add something to the question from Pak Made? Professor Delwar?
Thank you. Can you please tell me the questions again? Sorry.
Yeah, Pak Made is asking about the kind of collaboration that may be suitable for Bali conditions to integrate agriculture and the condition in Bali where culture and everything is very influencing in the agricultural supply chain.
Well, I think the horizontal collaborations with limited horizontal collaboration is possible. If they have a commercial entity who actually can take the leaderships on these collaborations. So taking the product with the appropriate price. But horizontal collaboration actually very much appropriate for small scale landholders, not only in Australia, across the globe. And it was there many years ago. Still there is some types of collaborations there instead of competitions. But the problem is time always demanding different mechanism, different entity, different governance system to be part of this collaboration. So this is what that we need to create from the Indonesian context.
Okay, thank you, Professor Delwar. I hope that answers your question, Pak Made. So we have come to the end of our second discussion session. Thank you very much, everyone. I think some key points that we can bring with us. First, how the collaboration is a key element. The presentations today showed that farmers, industries, logistic providers, researchers, policymakers, and market actors must work together to improve quality, reduce losses, and strengthen the competitiveness. And also how the policy and governance are essential. Without the supportive institutions, standards, capacity building, and coordinated decision making, technology will not create its full impact. Before I send the event back to the Master of Ceremony, I think our chairman of research organization is still present. Bu Puji, do you want to greet our speakers today?
Thank you, Mbak Sari. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to apologize because I had other obligation, actual offline meeting with the BRIN chairman in Jakarta. I just came back in the office. At this time, actually, really, I would like to, on behalf of BRIN, Research Organization Agriculture and Food, thanks to all of the distinguished speakers. Professor Delwar, thank you so much. Professor Hurriyat, thank you. Yeah. Dr. Yuanita, Bu Junita. Yeah. Actually, all of the topics that you present today and discuss is very important for us. This is not only for this webinar, but I hope it can trigger us how we can continue our partnership. Of course, not only discussion on this online media, but how we can continue for like joint research. Yeah. And BRIN is very open with a lot of scheme, and of course, we are encouraged to have not only national but also international collaboration. And here with the particular thank to the Reset Forum Central Queensland University, Australia. Thank you so much for this for support in this collaboration. And also we can continue again in the future. Also all of the ITB, ITB, and and I hope I think it's from me, and I hope this is fruitful for all of us. And Mbak Sari, I hope you could also connect us in the future with all of the speakers, so we can have further discussion for the research. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Puji Lestari. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of ROAF BRIN and CRESC CQ, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to all speakers for the valuable presentations and to all the participants for the active engagement. I apologize for any shortcomings during the session, and now I return the event to the Master of Ceremony. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Sari Intan Kailaku, for moderating today's webinar. Ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the certificate presentation session as a token of appreciation for the distinguished speakers and moderator for their valuable contribution to today's webinar. The certificates are presented to Professor Delwar Akbar, Dr. Dwinita Wikan Utami, Profesor Hurriyat Babakan, Dr. Yuanita Handayati, dan Dr. Sari Intan Kailaku. Thank you to all speakers and moderator for the insightful presentations and valuable discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude today's webinar, we will have a virtual group photo session. We kindly ask all speakers, moderator, and participants to turn on their cameras for the documentation session. Okay, ready? Please look at the camera and smile. I will start count from the first slide. 1, 2, 3. Second slide. 1, 2, 3. Third slide. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This brings us to the end of today's webinar. On behalf of the organizing committee, we would like to express our sincere appreciation to all speakers, moderator, and participants for your valuable participation and contribution. We hope today's discussion will inspire future collaboration and innovation in sustainable agriculture and food systems. Thank you and have a pleasant day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Profesor Delwar, Profesor Hurriyat. Bu Yuanita, sampai ketemu lagi. See you soon.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah,
Selamat
thank you.
sore.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, thank you.